Okay, welcome back. I just been under the car this morning doing a little manual cleaning of the underside of the bed. Let's see what I have to do to straighten out some pretty big dents in some of the areas. Also, just to clean it down and get it ready for the drop. I don't want to trap any large pieces of garbage or dirt under there, so I've been going in all the nooks and crannies and cleaning all that stuff out. And then I went ahead and I laid out the lines for the plug welds that'll have to go in on the cross members that I've put on the new this new frame over here. So I'll get you turned around and show you what I'm up to up underneath the bed of the El Camino. All right, right off the bat, you can see once it's cleaned down, you can see quite a bit of denting from the previous owners, and tossing things into the bed. Obviously that's going to happen over time, nothing unusual. Overall it's pretty decent. I mean, there's some surface rust on the top side, but you can see from this is the original paint. I mean, this is pretty nice looking by comparison to a lot of El Caminos you'd find out there. So really nice clean piece. But anyway, these are the layout lines. I used some tape to get me a nice straight edge across here and drill out these where the plug welds will be. There are areas here that obviously I'll have to fill these in. These are not going to be any place where I'll be welding up to the new chassis. Again, here's another row of plug welds. Again, another row of plug welds here. And it's better to get this all drilled out before I drop it, obviously, because it's going to be right down on top of these frame members, so it'll be almost impossible to get a nice clean drill hole, at least to that size, to be able to do an efficient weld or complete weld that you'd have confidence in. At any rate, that's where I'm at with this, and like I said, I've got to come up with some kind of a strategy of getting rid of some of these larger dents. All right, with the El Camino body down on some jack stands supported sufficiently, I've gone ahead and I'm starting to fix all the dents that are in these long rails first. In other words, these higher rails here, any dents. You can see this is pretty well dented up really badly here. So what I've done is I've clamped this piece of 1.5 by 1.5 steel tubing at the very end over here of the bed, and I've also put some weight on it down that end, but also from the bottom side through that final run of holes that are in the bed already, screwing up into this to hold this firm. And to my surprise, it's working out pretty good. It's actually straightening up these ribs pretty good. Now these depressions here still have some dents, so I'll have to go back through and use this process again by setting these down in the holes, and then basically using this as a backer to hammer against on the bottom side of the car, and that's helping me to get all of these major irregularities out. So I'll do the same thing, like I said, for the depressions, but first and foremost, I'm going to get all these rise ribs here fixed as best I can, and then I'll go back and I'll work on the in-between spots here. And so I'll just get under the car here and show you what I'm doing. As you can see, I can clearly see under here where any dents would be. Like here, there's a dent from the top side, so I'll just drive that out, hammer it out. But having that backer all the way down from one end to the other is helping this whole thing. I don't know, it's very difficult to see, but you can see this is kind of whipped down. You can see it's kinked here and it's whipped down, but as you move over to the side where it's already corrected, this is straightened back out over here, which has picked up this area here, which will help when I set everything down on that car, that all this won't be already deformed, and it'll basically be picked up to where when I screw it down and weld it down, it'll be in the correct position. Anyway, there's just done this one and this one, and I'll have to go around and do all the rest of them, and then come back and do these sections in between and get rid of those large dips and bumps. You can see here some of the things I'm dealing with, like this one right here. So over here, I've already taken most of them out, and it's a pretty straight run all the way down. It's not perfect, but it's going to be good enough for the bed, but it won't at least have these big gallywumpuses in them. That's a technical term, by the way, gallywumpus. I don't know if you can see this or not, but here's one that I just finished, and you can see that it's pretty tight all the way across, and that's just sitting on there. It's not screwed down or anything. And I'll just show you what it looks like. I'll move it to the next one over to show you what I was starting with on this one. As you can see right there, there's a pretty big gap, and so that's working out way better than my expectations. I thought that I'd be under hammering like a monkey and then coming on to the top side and seeing that I hadn't made any difference. But they seem to be hammering up to the point where they're all decking out back to their original location to some degree. Anyway, that's where I'm at with this. Okay, it's about time to drop this thing now. Gone ahead and I've drilled out all my holes for my plug welds. And I've also gone back and very tediously filled in all of the holes that I'm not using that were attached to the old cross member and some of the bracketry. So that's what we've got going on right now. And I threw a little bit of primer over the all of the plug welds to cover those holes. So it's about time. I've thrown some primer on the rockers, and we'll get the other car positioned under here and proceed with all of that. Anyway, that's where I'm at with this. All right, so I dropped the car down for what I thought would be the last time to drop it, and I've just been deliberating for the last day as to whether or not I want to stick with this setup or drop it a little lower. And I've decided I'm going to drop it at least another 2 inches. One of my pet peeves about these body swap projects is that they generally look odd because they're misfit. Either the tires or the car looks like it's too high in the air or has too fat of rockers, and that's what this is heading towards right now, mainly in the back here. Now that's the car doesn't have all its weight on it. Obviously it doesn't have an engine transmission in it, seats, interior, and all that stuff, but that space between the top of the tire there and the bottom of this quarter panel is just way too much. It's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the car to get a little closer to the ground, at least to where a stock El Camino looks. But right now it's threatening to be looking like a 4x4, and I don't want that look. Here's another issue that I've kind of was compromising on that I really don't like. Now the top of the dashboard's right here, so I'll have this gap from here to fill, which I've seen that done on a bunch of body swaps, and you know, where they put a truck on a car body, or a car chassis I should say, like a Crown Vic, an F100 or something like that, and there's this gigantic gap between the Crown Vic dashboard and the windshield bed of the F100 or whatever truck is put on there, and I really don't like that look. Now I'm not going to be able to get it down all the way. Even 2 inches is not going to get it 100% to this, even with this windshield bed, which is where the El Camino dashboard starts. So that's a pretty big gap. It's about 3 inches. But as you can see from the beginning, when I was planning this, so there's a blue line over there, I had intended to cut this off and drop this down that much farther, and then I thought that I would be okay with all the modifications I did over here, that everything would look okay and this would drop down to where it needs to go. But I don't like how much is sticking out the bottom here. It's about 1 3/4 inches here, so that's probably how far down I'm going to drop it to get that even. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that this is now sitting as low as it can based on where this bed is. So this bed's going to have to get raised up by about 1 3/4 inches. And so what I'm going to do here is I've ordered a new bed pan. This one's got a lot of rust on the top side, which is no big deal. I was just going to put some bed liner on it after I, killed all the rust. But what I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to have to cut it across at least right here where all the supports are, and cut this whole section of the bed out and let this thing come up through about 1 3/4 inches. And then I'll reattach this bed. And then when my new bed comes in, I'm just going to lay that right over top of this existing bed, because I don't want to get involved with taking all of this apart around this perimeter here, in these curves over here, and all the sealer that's going on in here. I want to just go ahead and cut out this section here that's actually sitting on, and let this all just rise up through here. Makes the bed shallower by about 1 3/4 inches, 2 inches. But at this point, though, I think this is going to kill the look. I know there's lowering springs for these, that some of the springs will lower it about 1.8 inches, almost 2 inches. But that's still not low enough and for what I'm looking at as far as the look I want to achieve with this car. So I'll have to take the body back off and do some more trimming, some more cutting, and get this thing squatted down just a little bit further. Well, that was quick. Less than 24 hours ago, I ordered this sheet metal for my bed in the El Camino, and it already got here. I wasn't expecting to see it propped up outside less than 24 hours later. Anyway, just got it off of eBay. A pretty good price, but anyway, that's great. All right, so that's a big hole in the bed now. Drop that sheet metal out of here so I can drop this body down a little lower where it needs to go. Went and trimmed up a bunch over here to get this a whole lot higher in here. On the back side here, you can see it a little bit better. This area right over here had to be trimmed back quite a bit. Actually, I should have just started with this. I got rid of this entire extension panel that goes up underneath the windshield right here. The dash starts here and goes back. This will allow all of that windshield bed from the El Camino to drop in here. I do some notching over here, remove some more material. So that gives me a much cleaner line to start with anyway, which is nice. And well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes down on here. Probably not going to go down on the first shot, because I try to cut these as close as possible so that I can weld them back right to the frame. But it's not always possible to get everything spot on. Well, we'll see how close I got. Okay, so just dropped it 1 7/8, almost 2 inches, and now at the bottom here, we're level with the bottom of the frame rails. The pinch weld on the body is level with the bottom of the frame rails, and the old pinch weld on the Camaro. So everything's straight, smooth across on the bottom, which is nice. It means I can make just a straight connection there. As you can see in the doorway here, I'm going to have to trim down that part of the Camaro pinch weld, but this was always going to be the relationship of the floor to the top of the dash in the El Camino is now correct for the El Camino. What happened was I started making, because of how it fit the bed, I started making these, exemptions for what I wanted to do. And basically, when they all piled up and I looked at them as a whole, there were 3 or 4 areas that I really said, well, that'll be okay, and that'll be okay, and I guess this will be all right, and I guess that'll be all right. When they all got together at the very end there, when I saw this thing down, I was like, man, that ain't gonna get it. And you can see now the tires. I know there's no weight in the car, but I'd anticipated having these tires to be tucked up in there a little further than that from the get-go. But the sacrifice is here in the bed. As you can see, the frame is popped up through the hole now. So basically this piece of aluminum laying flat across here is how much I have to raise the bed. And it is what it is. I guess I got to make this one sacrifice cures about 5 sacrifices. One of the big issues, like I said, I had was, this is actually the top of the dash on the Camaro. See where it bolts up, and then this is where the top of the dash bolted up on the El Camino originally. So now I've got a much smaller transition. Hopefully that'll look a little more natural. And if you can see my line over there on that rocker, the blue line right here on my old pinch weld area, that's where I had originally planned to trim this thing before I started running into my limitations with my rear spring buckets. So now that's all resolved. Basically, it's where I want it to be. This floor pan here is relative to the top of the dash where it was, maybe about a ½ inch difference than the El Camino was originally. So you'll be sitting in the car, lower, like you're looking through the base of the windshield. You'll be sitting up in the car the way you want it to look. Also, the car itself is going to be able to be, I can get 2-inch drop springs for this, so I can get this down even further, but I have to have a good starting spot, and this is it. So this is where I'm going to keep it. Okay, I'm starting the tedious task of starting to stitch this all together. So far, I've solid welded all of this down through here to attach this front clip solidly to this door pillar. I don't know how much of this panel here I'm going to trim away just yet. I'm going to leave it wild for now. I've gone ahead and plug welded through existing plug weld holes here to get this attached to this side piece over here. I've gone ahead and trimmed off this side and ground it all down, and then solid welded this all the way across. Couldn't plug weld it really because from here it goes down on an angle. So I went ahead and just get this light out of here, show you what's going on over here. Now comes the fun part of trying to stitch all this inside here together. As you can see, I've taken and I've hammered this over this flange and plug welded it to the body here. Now I'm back here trying to make a closure on the wheel hole area. I'll bring you around here, show you that. Now I've got a clear idea as to what's going on back here as far as how it all interfaces. I've taken out the remainder of what I was trying to save. It was the inner wheel tub of the El Camino. I had been trimming it down. You can see over that side it's still in, little piece of sheet metal there. But I've decided to go, I was going to go in and do some fancy stuff here, but I decided just to run a panel down from there to here, make a very simple panel, close this wheel tub area in. Anyway, that's where I'm at with that. I'm just trying to straighten out all the lines and glue the two halves together, and we'll just keep on digging. Okay, so was kind of a crazy little panel. Had a lot of shape. I had to think real hard as to where I was going to bend it first, because sometimes when you bend something, it keeps you from bending other areas. This has to roll around this area here and come out behind here. And then there's this little tight bend over here, and then there's a gradual bend over here. So it was a little tricky, a lot of back and forth, but that's what that panel's looking like. So this is the El Camino body up here. This is the Camaro right here. Camaro, El Camino. So it's a nice mend. Hopefully there won't be any rubbing issues here with the tires, but this is where the Camaro ended up. So I'm assuming that that was clearance for the Camaro. It should be clearanced enough for what's going on here. Anyway, I know I'm saying that now, but you never know. All right, the tedious part of this whole situation is what I ended up doing for the last 3 or 4 hours, and that's filling in all these little tiny shapes up inside here, because everything's irregular the way it meets up with the El Camino from this point. right here, which was a nice, clean, easy panel. It didn't take me very long to make this, get this all tacked in. But then I had to go across the top, and this piece here comes back out and goes back in, and then it has all these little sweeps in it. So it took a little while before I could get all that, all those different shapes cut out and welded in there, so that it was a solid closure all the way back. I still have to, you know, tie in the rocker on the bottom side, which I haven't got to yet. Probably finish everything I can on this side before I drag all this mess over to the other side of the car and deal with that. But I also, I don't know if I showed you this yet or not, I've also welded along here, along this frame rail here, to tie this bed into there, and got this a little closure up going over here, so this is all closed up and welded across. Yeah, so that's where I'm at right now. I'll just have to keep on digging, get this all connected. All right, so one final thing that I'm going to have to do with these wheel wells, of course, is going to be to see what kind of a clearance I have with these new tires and wheels. Obviously, the width is, you know, an issue. It doesn't look like it would be from this side here. Looks like it's fine, but the tire has to project up into here at least another 4.5 inches, which is from about here to here. If it's going to, when it bottoms out, I just went ahead and I moved this suspension chain, this temporary suspension chain, since the shocks are out. I moved that a little forward and just drilled a hole through the webbing there to put the suspension chain in there. Let me put a light on here, see if I can get you to see it a little bit better. Yeah. See that right there? Just put that temporary suspension chain there to hold the suspension from drooping 100%. I put in the new bump stop there, which has an aluminum block, which builds it down somewhat from the original location. So that should help limit the suspension travel, which I don't know why you would need more than 4 inches of suspension travel. But at any rate, that's where that's at. But that's going to be the limit of the travel of this rear axle. And that'll determine whether or not, or how much I should say, I'm definitely going to have to cut out some of that inner fender well that's on the inside of the quarter panel, because it tapers in quite a bit faster than the outer quarter panel. So I'll have to get rid of that, minimize the rim, so that all this will tuck up in there in the most extreme position that it could possibly get in, so I don't have an issue with tire rub. But I just thought I'd put these wheels and tires on in that bump stop right now before I get over to the other side and start working on that, because well, it's probably the next step, that once I get that side all welded up, which will be a little while from now, I'll put the same setup on the right side of the car, and then I'll be able to take the springs out, jack it up, see what kind of interference I have, and modify whatever I need to do on the inside of this wheel well before I go any further with anything else. Anyway, just thought I'd bring you up to speed on that. All right, I'm working my way down the right-hand side of the car now. I've got this all welded in over here, trimmed some of this off. I've got this welded solid across over here. I've got this inner piece beat over and welded up in this side here. And now I've been working on getting it welded to this frame rail over here, around here. And now I'm underneath the wheel hole itself, which is the most fun. I've got that panel in already. And now I'm going around and trying to put in all these little odd shapes here to fill in and close it up against this frame rail over here. And a little trick I have here for handling these little fiddly pieces, once I get them you know, fit up to the right size, I just weld them to a piece of scrap metal so that I can hold it up into the location. This one going right up in here while I weld it up. I just thought I'd show you. That's a little tip I showed way back a couple projects ago. It makes it easier to you know, hold these little bits. Just weld a rod to it or something like that, so that you can hold it far away and place it in there, and you're not trying to hold it with your fingers. Anyway, this is where I'm at with it. All right, so I've been messing around, just finishing this, closing this out. And what I've had to do here is this is the inside area under here, underneath the rear floor area here. I needed to close it out from the bed and the outside world. So what I had to do is, this was just kind of wiggling because it had no support across here. So what I had to do is create this a channel like this, an S channel. I tucked it up underneath here, welded onto both sides over there, and basically plug welded it all the way across here. So now this is a firm floor right here. Not that it needs to be firm for the sake of you know, supporting anything. It just needs to be don't need to have it wiggling and vibrating and making a lot of noise. And it also reestablishes the unity of the old bed, at least in this portion. And I had to go ahead and block off all of these odd little shapes here and basically straighten out all the lines. I have to still go through, now that I've painted this with some Rust-Oleum Hammerite paint. Once this is dried, I'm going to go across and seam seal all of this up here and across here and in this area here. I've left this weld through primer in the areas that I'm going to plug weld the new bed down to. So any areas that I knew I was going to be welding to, I went ahead and I sprayed those. Also along here, I'm going to need to seam seal along here and along the back side and around the other side. I did something similar. Had to do it in 2 stages over here. Basically an L channel underneath, plug welded across the bed to make this rigid, and then bring up another piece of channel, another L, to create an S channel that decks out with this existing member right here. And so that straightens everything out there. Another place for the bed to be welded down to, plug welded before it gets to the back. In addition to that, I had this hole in the frame rail that I cut out and relieved and capped off for the neck of the gas tank. Now that this is raised up another 1.5 inches into the car, this alleyway was going to cause the neck to have to go down to come back up in the gas fill area. So what I've done is this is 1.5 inches up here, and I cut out an area and created a little pathway so that if you look through here, let me see if I can get down here. If you can see, this is straight down now to where the gas neck will come up on an angle and end up in the center here. So it's a downhill flow to fill the gas, so you don't have gas just sitting in the gas neck. Anyway, like I said, back here I'll have to go and seam seal all of this over here, around in there, over here, before I start working on a perimeter flange that will hold the new bed and start to introduce that. Anyway, just thought I'd show you all that, and we'll go on from here. Incidentally, we're down on the ground for the first time on all 4 tires. It's not looking too bad at this point as far as how high it is off the ground. I may not lower it anymore. The front obviously is pitched up because there's no engine in the car. As you can see, I can't even budge these springs in the front. That's how much weight those springs are anticipated to hold, but they're rated to hold the engine that came out of it, basically. Over here, you can see the rear end is a whole lot easier to push on, and we'll see what happens when all of those things come together, the weight of the engine and the transmission, and the interior and all that distributed with the doors and everything. See how far down this thing actually ends up going. Right now, it doesn't look like I need to modify anything if it doesn't go up any further than it is right now, but in the rear. But I think it'll probably end up rubbing by the time I'm through. A couple good bumps, and I'll be shredding my tires. Anyway, I do have a little work I have to do on the rim at least, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to do something on the inside of the wheel tub. But one can hope maybe something magical will happen and I won't have to do that. It never works out like that. All right, so I've got this all seam sealed along the front edge, down in that cavern down there, along the edges here, and along the back side. I was going to dive off into putting the new bed in, but getting off the beaten track a little bit here. My main task is to get this car all welded together everywhere it needs to be welded together, And before I get too far along doing some other tasks, I need to do the rockers on the bottom side. I'm currently looking at all of the chicken and egg scenarios I have here with the dashboard. For now, I've just stopped it to stabilize the windshield better. Over here I put some 1/4-inch tubing just to stabilize it to the Camaro and make sure it doesn't wiggle. I've temporarily put this panel back in, which I drilled out originally to be able to cut the car apart. This is the panel that mounts the windshield wiper studs, and so I just had to put those in with the arms to see what kind of clearances I have here, because I want to be able to take this pocket here and basically come over with some sheet metal and close it up all the way along the underside here. So I'll take this back off and I'll do that job. But I wanted to make sure that I had enough clearance for the swing of my arms for the El Camino setup for the windshield wipers. I wanted to take a look over here, see what kind of a situation I have in this area here, which this is the air induction, cold air induction, and it's a little bit different than the El Camino. The El Camino has the box on the outside of the firewall, in which case any water coming through this way would go down through the box and then out the bottom. Of course, that box is on this side of the firewall. That means the firewall is a little bit back in this direction on the El Camino. You can see right now, if I just set this in place really quickly right here, you can see that any water coming in here will go directly in to here, which is a different setup on the Camaro. That box does not drain out, so I have to make sure that whatever I set up here, any water coming in through this screen here would basically channel its way out and across to the other side to the drain. And so I have to configure that, kind of take a look and see what I got, what I'm up against there, see what I'm up against with some of my fender mount locations. I put this piece back in here because it has a bolt hole for the fender mount. Just got a fender thrown up here real quick, but I'm just eyeballing things right now. This is another fender. I've got this inner structure. It's probably all going to have to go. But it's just kind of making sure I don't make any solid moves before I just get an appraisal of everything and see what kind of interference I'm going to have. I'm probably going to have to throw the doors up on here at some point before I get to mounting the fenders. That's a ways down the road. Like I said, my main problem now is just to try and close up this whole area here so that, this firewall area is closed to the interior of the car. And so with that in mind, I've just basically put all these panels in place, put my windshield wiper stuff in to see where that's all going to go. I haven't been able to determine where I'm going to mount my motor yet because I have to do some hybridization of the here's the windshield wiper motor out of the El Camino. This is obviously the Camaro, much smaller. Whether I end up using this arm or just the stud, we'll see, but I've got the geometry set here. Motors pretty much act the same way, but they mount differently. So I just wanted to make sure there was an area before I got two squoes in here. And this is where pretty much that it's going to end up at. So I've got to mount it someplace out here. I don't recall if there's anything mounted in this location or not. If there is, I'm going to have to figure out where I'm going to have to move it to. But at any rate, just a bunch of ciphering, a bunch of back and forth. Like I said, a bunch of chicken and egg scenarios here before I make some hard moves just to closing that up at the front. But anyway, I'll be getting into this mostly next week. It's about all I'm going to do up to now, and I appreciate everybody for watching, and I will see you on the next one.